Next up is The Shy, which is another show that is also available on Showtime. Now, The Shy is a show that was created by Lena Waithe, and the way I've heard her describe it, it's a show about the South Side of Chicago and trying to depict and show the families and folks that are growing up and living and working and surviving in the South Side of Chicago despite all the rhetoric and violence and shit that we hear about on the news all the time. You know, we're always hearing about murders that are taking place and gang violence, and you know, every weekend, every other weekend, there's a handful of shootings happening in the South Side of Chicago, and so much so that we have become like desensitized to it almost. We kind of just like, oh, another shooting, oh, another person died. I heard her, and by her I mean Lena Waithe, say something to the effect of, and I'm completely paraphrasing, that this show, once we start following like stories of Brandon, which is played by Jason Mitchell, which is the guy that played Eazy-E in the Straight Outta Compton movie, the character of Ronnie Davis, played by, I'm going to butcher his real name, Ntari Guma Bajo Mwine, and Emmett Washington, played by Jacob Lattimore, Kevin Williams, played by Alex Hibbert, Stanley Papa Jackson, Jada Washington, Jake Taylor, Jericho Little. Those are all character names, etc., etc., etc. As we start making connections to these characters and following their trajectory throughout the show, when we hear stories, real stories about, another kid getting shot and stuff like that, we kind of don't take it as lightly. We picture that happening to like an Emmett Washington or Kevin Williams on his way to school, etc. And when she said that, I felt like Lena was like a legit Dionne Warwick, could tell me what I was thinking, psychic or something, because that's exactly how I feel after watching the first 2 full seasons of The Shy. I'm a really big Lena Waithe fan, just like on the strength of her interviews alone and her like acting on Master of None, her writing on the Coming Out show on the Master of None that she won an Emmy for. She was also in one of my favorite fiction books, which is Ready Player One, that was turned into a movie, and she played the character of H in that movie, which is one of the main characters, and she knocked it out of the box. And she's just a dope, talented person that you can tell has a vision and mission and knows what she wants and is executing on so many levels and being the change that she wants to see. She's walking the walk. She grew up not really seeing someone that represented her like on the screen, on the TV screen, on the movie screen, and she's changing that literally. And not just changing, she has changed. And there's great writing on the show. When I'm into like a show like this, I like following, like reading the credits and seeing who the showrunner is and the writer of each individual show, and following them on Twitter. And she has a real talented crew of folks around her with really good acting, great acting in some cases by like folks like Ronnie Davis is like a standout for me. Kevin Williams is really good. Stanley Papa Jackson, Barton Fitzpatrick, which plays Reg. That spoiler alert, unexpectedly gets like mowed down, shot down at the end of season 2, which I was not expecting at all. Like I expected him to like be on the show for the long haul. I really like in the might have been the last episode of season 2, if I'm not mistaken as well, how there was like a theme of forgiveness and like putting down that weight that you're carrying around when you are like burdened by the grudge that you're holding against someone. and how they're equally burdened as well. And you see it in how first Detective Cruz comes to Brandon's house and he's waiting for him on the stoop. It's a tough thing for him to do, and he's like sipping on a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, and confesses to being the one that told Ronnie that Coogie, which is Brandon's brother, younger brother, was by the body of Jason, which is Ronnie's son. So Jason, Ronnie's son, was hanging out, coming home from his girl's crib. One day, winds up getting shot and killed. Ronnie Davis, which is his stepfather, but that raised him, finds out about it, and he runs to where. Well, he finds out about it by Detective Cruz telling him that he knows. He doesn't know if this kid killed his son Jason or not, but he saw the kid around Jason's body, etc. Like after it happened, and Ronnie Davis wound up confronting the kid, and the kid had Jason, which is Ronnie's dead son's chain on, and he confronts him. Coogie, which is the kid, says he didn't kill him. He just took the stuff off of him after he saw the dead body, took his sneakers and his chain and stuff, and was definitely didn't kill him or anything like that. Ronnie didn't believe him. There was a bit of a struggle, and Ronnie wound up shooting him and killing him. Now that kid they shot and killed was Brandon's younger brother, which is another main character of the show. So Ronnie's the main character, Brandon's the main character, Detective Cruz is a big character as well. There's scenes earlier in the season, maybe even in season 1, where Brandon finds out and confronts Ronnie and fucks him up, physically beats him up, and then Kevin, which is a little kid, winds up picking up this gun that Brandon had in his book bag, and he shoots just to scare them, whatever, to get them to stop fighting, and winds up shooting Ronnie, and Ronnie almost dies. And anyway, I'm meandering right now, especially if you haven't seen the show, but the point is that Detective Cruz winds up going to Brandon and confessing and telling him that he's the one that told Ronnie that Coogie, which is his little brother, was around the body of Jason, which is Ronnie's son. And so it's his fault that Coogie winds up getting killed. And he lets that weight off. And in that release, they clarify some things for Brandon. And fast forward a little bit in the episode, Brandon winds up bumping into Ronnie again, and then going up to Ronnie, and he's crying, Ronnie's crying, and he's really pissed at him, but he says that he found out that he thought that it was that Coogie killed his son, so he fucking hates him, but he understands, he gets it, etc., and winds up forgiving Ronnie. Then that weight gets lifted off of Ronnie and also Brandon. And then Ronnie grew up without his dad, and then found out in a traumatic way that his father lived across the street from him the whole time when he was being raised by his grandmother, but he didn't know it was his father until after he left, and his grandmother told him, and he moved down south, and he never forgave him. And at the end of the show, he winds up going to see his father, which seems to be not on his deathbed, but he's an old man walking around with an oxygen tank and stuff like that, and he winds up forgiving his father. And it's just that pattern and theme of forgiveness that seems to be giving each of these characters a release that they've been looking for. Ronnie especially, he's a recovering alcoholic and constantly dealing with his demons and shit, especially after killing Coogie, which you can tell he really regretted. Now in the show, there's 6 major storylines, 6 major characters, all of which intertwine. and mixed up in some way. Like there's Brandon and his fiance, them that makes up like two of the main stories. Then you have Ronnie, the character of Emmett, and his mother, which is his mother Jada, which are another two of the big storyline characters. And then you have Kevin, and then to a lesser extent, his boys Jake Taylor and Stanley Papa Jackson. And all the characters like intertwine. Like Kevin grew up like without his dad, and his mom's lesbian, and he kind of looks up to Brandon's character a bit, and he's kind of looking for like a big brother slash father figure in him. It seems like Emmett meets and starts working with Brandon, whose character is a chef in the show, and starts his own food truck and names it after his deceased younger brother Coogie. And he's like a phenomenal chef, wound up like joining a competition of chefs in Chicago and wound up finishing 3rd out of 50. What else? Anyway, so 2 of those 6 main characters, which is Brandon and his fiance, Jerica, played by Tiffany Boone, are not coming back for season 3. Now, the reason being is stuff that happened offset. Jason Mitchell, which is Brandon's character, wound up, and again, is the guy that played Eazy-E in Straight Outta Compton, was fired from the show. He was also dropped by his agent and his management due to continued inappropriate advances to his co-star, which is his fiance on the show, and sexual harassment. And he was also previously accused of assaulting a woman in 2016 at a hotel after she didn't want to get with him or something. And he also had a third set of allegations that are known in public off of the set of either a show or a movie called Desperados. So he winds up, it was kind of like the last straw with his co-star on the show, where he was again like continuously like inappropriate with her. She felt uncomfortable. She said that she was leaving the show. He was fired. Lena Waithe, on the Breakfast Club interview, said that Tiffany Boone chose to leave, but she always has a place in the show if she ever wants to come back, and she just wants to make sure that she feels safe, etc. But Brandon obviously is fired and can't come back to the show regardless. It's like a big blow to the show because they have 2 like main storylines, especially Brandon. He's like probably out of all the characters, like probably had like the most screen time, I would guess, I would say, and has one of like the bigger storylines that interacts with even more characters than how all the other ones interact with him. So it's a devastating blow to the show, but the show, I'm sure, will still be fine for season 3 and onward after the fact. What I'm most looking out for, and kind of in a weird way excited about, just from a creative standpoint, is to see how the writers write themselves out of that hole. Are they just gonna take like the narrative choice of focusing on the remaining main characters on the show, and propping them up to bigger roles? Are they going to introduce new characters to focus on? Are they going to try to substitute Brandon with someone else, like a lookalike kind of, and continue his storyline? Or write off his character in a one-line throwaway where his cousin says, "I can't believe these guys eloped and left," or something. You know what I mean? Like something like that. I don't know. But I am very, very curious as to see which direction the show takes for season 3. So I'm really looking forward to it. Again, it is The Chi, short for Chicago, CHI. I recommend it. It's available on Showtime. Seasons 1 and 2 are out now.